So Pakistan has appointed Matthew Hayden and Vernon Philander as their batting and bowling coach. And then Ramiz Raja had a very monumental press conference, his first as the PCB chairman. And then we're also going to preview the ODI series, 3-match ODI series set to be played between Pakistan and New Zealand with my guest, Asjad Pasha from north of England. And of course, he runs a YouTube channel himself called Cricket for Us on this volume of
CRIQAZI Diaries.
Have a look at that, miles up, oh, it's nearly taken someone out of the stands. That was a flat six right under the stand there, the George Giffen stand, up into the members, and it went like a rocket. Well, number 24.
Hello, Asjad. Welcome to the show. First of all, it's an absolute honor to have you over here. You know, someone who does the same thing as a passion. And how are you feeling and how are you today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Thank you so much for having me on. It's my pleasure to be here, man. I've seen a few of your videos. I'm really liking the type of engagement, the type of conversations you have. So yeah, very excited to be here. I'm good. It's quite late here in the UK, but I'm excited to talk about cricket.
That's lovely. And as I've told you guys, Asjad, of course, has his own YouTube channel called Cricket for Us. I will leave a link in the description below for you guys to check out. So without further ado, Asjad, Matthew Hayden and Vernon Philander as Pakistan's batting and bowling coach. Now, both of these players were I love them, personal favorites of mine, especially Matthew Hayden. If I were ever to make an all-time team, Matthew Hayden would open for me. And then Vernon Philander was the epitome of line and length and control. So if you look at these two players just as cricketers, then they were masters of their art. They were fantastic. But we're not quite sure how they will fare as coaches because they haven't really done that before. Vernon, of course, Big Vern retired in 2020, and Matthew Hayden, even though it's been a while since Hayden retired, he's mostly just been in and around the IPL and done some media stints. So he doesn't have that coaching experience. So what's your take on that? Are you happy with these appointments? And do you think Pakistan will do well under their guidance?
Right. First off, something that I found out this morning was that technically they haven't been appointed as coaches yet. They're in that secret zone where they're consultants, they're coaches, but it's basically batting and bowling kind of specified for either one. Now, if we talk about Matthew Hayden, fantastic batsman, great opener. The biggest thing is he is good at teaching someone how to do power hitting. Even in the IPL, after he retired from CSK, he was still around the scenes as a sort of batting consultant for a couple of years. So I think that's the one big thing that I take away from someone who doesn't have a proper coaching experience, but he has played in the IPL. He has the experience of consulting and the experience of, trying to help out younger players in the CSK lineup to get better with their power hitting. So I think that thing Pakistan really needs, because Pakistan, what do they need? They need a finisher. They need a consistent finisher, especially in T20s and ODIs right now, unless you have, your top guns that can go on with the innings. But there's certain players, Pakistan just needs to develop that one extra oomph, as they call it, with regards to the batting side of things. Now, if we look at Vernon Philander, in Test cricket, he has been metronomical with his line and length. He's not the guy, he's not Dale Steyn. He's not 90 mile an hour, swings it both ways, but he is 80 miles an hour and swings it both ways. He's genuinely, the best example currently I would use are players like Josh Hazelwood a couple of years ago, Mohammad Abbas a couple of years ago.
I was thinking about him actually.
Yeah. Mohammad Abbas a couple of years ago, but the opposite happened. Hazelwood got faster and Abbas lost his pace, right? But with Vernon Philander, the thing was, he was so good with his line and length and he knew exactly where to bowl. It didn't matter where he was bowling in terms of conditions around the world. He was very, very good. The only issue I have with his selection is, yes, he can teach them discipline. Yes, he can teach the Pakistan side how to do well in Test cricket. I just don't know if this is the best appointment in terms of the T20 World Cup coming up. But what he can give is the idea of how to be disciplined in your line and lengths, when to bowl, which deliveries. Again, Waqar Younis could have done that, but let's not go into that type of conversation right now.
Let's leave that door closed. But you mentioned how Matthew Hayden could really help Pakistan with their power hitting. I agree. But I think on a more broader scale, the aggressive mindset that he had when he played for Australia, and very ruthless. Even when Shoaib Akhtar used to give him hell, he used to give it right back to him. That's the kind of mentality that I think Ramiz Raja wants to infuse in this team. So I think Hayden will definitely be beneficial over there, and I do think that Hayden's appointment is a better one than Vernon Philander. Of course, Vernon was a champion all-rounder. I would even put him in that category. I wouldn't say he was just a bowler. I would put him as an all-rounder. And then you rightly pointed out that guys like Mohammad Abbas could really learn a thing or two, because he was very specific with his line and length, and he didn't give the batsman a lot of room to play with, wicket-to-wicket bowling and extremely accurate. So that was his bread and butter, and I think rightly pointed out by you, I'm not quite sure how useful he can be in the T20 circuit, because he hasn't been in and around that format a lot. He's mostly been a red ball bowler. But again, I am hopeful, and I think his experience, at least, he can bring a lot to the table. But the one problem I have with this appointment, Asjad, is it's super short term. If you've just hired these people for the World Cup and then they're going to potentially leave, there are no long-term impacts, and also you can't really hold them responsible, can you, if Pakistan fail in the World Cup, because they're not even going to join in the New Zealand series. We're being optimistic right now if they'll be able to join in the England series. So that's a bit of an issue I have, that you can't be looking that short term, and if you had to appoint these guys, you should have appointed them for longer.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thing I've found out from a couple of sources is that the idea is Hayden and Philander will remain for at least the next year, but that's not official news yet. But the idea is they try them out in the World Cup, and if Pakistan gets to the semis, there's no way that they're gonna go anywhere. Okay. On top of that, they've got Saqlain Mushtaq and Abdul Razak's guidance in terms of it seems like they're going to be the head coaches, and then these guys are going to be the consultants around them. Now, it doesn't really matter how that dynamic works, as long as every person is able to do their own role perfectly well. You have to have a distinction. If we look at India as an example, right? With Ravi Shastri, if he's the head coach, MS Dhoni in the World Cup is just going to be a mentor. Okay, he is not going to take over Ravi Shastri's role. And as long as in the Pakistan setup, they're able to distinguish, okay, this is Abdul Razak's role, this is Saqlain Mushtaq, this is Hayden, and this is Vernon Philander, then I think the system could work quite well. And I foresee, honestly, I think this plan, no one knew about Ramiz Raja's plans with regards to the coaching or the consultants. Because they were like, yeah, he's going to come out, he's going to talk about dropping pitches, because that's all he talks about. They talk about Pakistan not having finishers, and we're going to find a way to draw finishers. And then, strike rate. But he actually talked about a lot of very interesting points.
And we'll get to those.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Yeah. But I guess just some closing remarks, of course, on you talked about the definition of roles. Now, I have heard that only one of Saqlain or Razak will be retained after the New Zealand series. And I think it's most likely going to be Saqlain, because he's had stints with England before. He's been successful as a coach. So I think that's the more sound choice. Of course, Razak has done well in the domestic circuit. He won, I think, the domestic treble with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And now he's, I think, working with Central Punjab. So there is some experience there. He's a budding coach. But I think they'll probably opt for Saqlain as the head coach, and then these guys can be the batting and bowling consultants on the side. Anyway, it's still positive. I'm being optimistic about this, even though there's not enough time for them to infuse that mentality. But Pakistan cricket, we revel in very tumultuous situations, don't we? So I'm hanging on to that thread. But coming on to Ramiz Raja's press conference, I want to talk about this a little bit. First thing I really want to talk about, which is actually linked to the coaches, is that he's brought in corporate sponsorship, which we've never seen before. And Bank Al Falah will actually fund both Hayden and Philander's appointment, which I think is a move in the positive direction, because Ramiz Raja also mentioned that he, as you said, he always talks about drop-in pitches, and I am a part of that camp. I think Pakistan will benefit from drop-in pitches, but then if he could get some corporate firms to sponsor those as well, that would be a big victory for Pakistan cricket, because the treasury of the PCB has always been an issue. And you've seen that he's increased the salaries of all 192 first-class cricketers by 100,000 rupees already. So we're seeing how he's working around the financial aspect of this, and I'm super impressed by that. I think corporate sponsorship, it's been far too late, and finally we're seeing this being introduced to Pakistan system. So all three of those things, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth, right? I thought Ramiz Raja would come in and he would do something out of the ordinary, and not just out of the ordinary for Pakistan, but out of the ordinary compared to a lot of other cricketing nations. And I think the corporate sponsorship you're talking about, it's going to definitely help. Yeah, everything helps with money. right? That's the thing. That's how the world works. And if you're able to get those sponsorships within the domestic circuit right now, I don't know if you know this, but do you know of Grassroots Cricket, which is a Pakistani YouTube channel, a Pakistani Instagram channel, right? They're actually now sponsoring entirety of Southern Punjab, right?
Oh.
So there's a lot of partnership that are happening because of Ramiz Raja's inclusion, because of, you know, the media person that he's been for almost over 20 years or almost 20 years, that he's got connections and he's able to kind of elicit the responses that will eventually benefit Pakistan. If I'm not wrong, he said words to the effect, I've already got the money. I'm here to help Pakistan cricket. And that kind of attitude, that kind of positivity, that type of proactive approach is something we don't see very often, especially from a chairman, right? We, at least in my opinion, I think we've seen it just a little bit with Wasim Khan, the CEO of PCB. But I think Ramiz Raja is just another level. He's another level higher, because the level higher than that is Imran Khan, who's the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So honestly speaking, I think these are some really good decisions. And in the end, when departmental teams were demolished and regional teams came in, the biggest issue was that, the amount of money you get is going to be a lot less. Everyone's going to suffer. But with this is probably the highest paid first-class cricketers in Pakistan ever, because of the way they've kind of structured this. An increase of 100,000 rupees is approximately 700 US dollars. That's a lot of money, especially for these guys who are not playing as much cricket as, you know, the international players are. They're not getting chances. And again, that's a different conversation. I really don't want to go into it. But all in all, I think it was a positive step. And I'm glad at the end of it. Who knew? Well, I knew, but most people thought Ramiz Raja coming in, he'd just say some things and, you know, try and get people on his side. But he's not Ramiz speaks, he's Ramiz does. I heard this on the channel, and on Savera Pasha's channel, and I was like, oh man, that's not bad. That's not bad.
I like that.
I'm gonna stick with that.
No, and I 100% agree. The fact that he's been so proactive, he already met with the players even before he was officially elected, and then on day one, you've seen that he's already done things. He's not talking about doing things. The first-class cricketers are already 1 lakh richer or 12 lakh richer in the entire calendar year. So I think that's an extremely positive step. And you know, we need money to be pumped in the first-class cricketing structure, because the proliferation of T20 cricket is also hurting Pakistan cricket. So it's very important to give those players some sense of financial security. So I think that was 10 on 10 to Ramiz Raja for that. And just on the same point, you mentioned how, you know, we have these 6 teams and these players need to be paid enough. He's also spoken about cricket on the grassroots level, bringing in a tiered system, you know, having club cricket mixed with school cricket, bringing school cricket back into the fold, and kind of having that tiered structure building up to first-class cricket, so that there's a proper pipeline that Pakistan will have for future generations. And this, I think, is, if he can implement this, because this is going to be no easy task, if he is successful to implement even 70 to 75% of his vision, I think Pakistan cricket will benefit a lot.
100%. If you look at, I'm going to use England as an example because I've lived here for 20 years of my life. There is school, there is club, there is tiered county levels, which is under 13, under 15, under 17, under 19, under 21. But if you're good enough, then you go into the county circuit for second team, then you go into the county circuit first team, then you go into international cricket. So that step-by-step approach, if Pakistan can get something similar to that, that would be very, very beneficial. On top of that, I personally am not a big fan of just having 6 or 12 teams, if you know what I mean, right? But at least that means the level of cricket is going to be a lot higher. We saw in last year's Sky-Azam Trophy that final just kind of resonates with me, especially
Hassan Ali innings.
Hassan Ali, man. That's the resurgence of Hassan Ali, and that's what he's been doing since. So definitely, I think as long as we're able to have a system for all of the people who want to play cricket, it's Pakistan. It's 220 million people, and a lot of them watch cricket. A lot of them want to play cricket. But if there's no real structure, they don't understand where to go from. Let's say, I'm interested in cricket at age 10, right? They don't know where to go. They just go, I'll play at school.
There's just no roadmap, right? And that's what this tiered structure, or, you know, even divisions. I like the division system in England. You can get relegated from the top tier to the second tier. I think you should incorporate something like that. And I think Ramiz is on the right path. But I think the smart thing he's doing is he's starting from the bottom up, not the top down. And
Exactly.
that's where you need to put in all of that development work, because school-going kids, who are actually from privileged families are demotivated to pursue a career in cricket because of, the lack of opportunity. And this will create opportunity. It will create a roadmap, and that will only benefit Pakistan cricket. One final question I have for you, Ajit, on Ramiz, and then we can move on to the preview of the Pakistan-New Zealand ODI series, is that I felt like there was a question missed over here in this press conference. They did not touch upon the fitness standard of the Pakistan team. There was a lot of work done during the Mickey Arthur era, and we saw that bear fruit. And you can see a lot of these cricketers that we have today, 80 to 85% of them, actually worked really hard on their fitness, and they have bred that culture. And all of a sudden, during Mohammad Wasim's selection stint, you've seen that being contradicted. And I'm not too happy with that. So I think that's one thing that Ramiz Raja should have addressed. What do you say?
That's a very interesting question, because I never really thought of it. Because to me, Pakistan cricket, the only time I've seen Pakistan actually work on their fitness like strictly and have a regime is during the Mickey Arthur era. Even since then, you've seen a decline in the fielding standards. Like, it's shocking how just one coach and a bowling coach and a team leaving, just this coaching team leaving, the entire Pakistani fielding setup looks like the Pakistani fielding of 10 years ago. Not even 10, 6 years ago, right? It's shocking. It's like we've gone back into old routines. Now, if we talk about fitness, I know who you're talking about. Let's not name any names.
We're not naming any names.
But honestly, right? I think he probably didn't address it because he's like, as long as you can score runs, it's fine. Because if you look at it, Ramiz Raja has said something which I don't like, but he said it, which is fair enough, which is the fact that the team that we've selected is the team that we're going to send to the World Cup. I'm not a huge fan of the team, which is
neither am I.
Right? Which is why I'm shocked. But Pakistan usually, makes a few changes just before the World Cup. But if he's very adamant that nope, Pakistan is not changing their team, that means he had something to do with it. That means that he was one of the few people who was like, yeah, that's the team that we want. He wants finishers, he wants power hitters, and he wants stability at the top of the order. Middle order can be hitters until you get to number 11 for the sake of argument. And with the bowlers, he wants aggressive mindset. So I think he's got 2 out of 3 things right. It's just the middle order that he's kind of struggled with. Now, in terms of fitness, again, I don't see that much of an issue at this moment. However, let's see if players like, players who are not as fit as they potentially could be, how they kind of go ahead in the next year or so, because there's certain players who are away from the game for 3 years and came back less fit than they were before they left.
Absolutely. And you can only hide so many people in the field, right? That's 100%. What I had issues with. But yeah, Ramiz Raja, I'm not sure how much of an influence he's had on this team selection, because Mohammad Wasim said in his press conference that he only told Ramiz the team as a courtesy, as the new chairman coming in. So I don't know what will happen over there. I do hope that they make some changes. At the very least, I would like to see Fakhar Zaman come in as a third opener, because you need an option. आप एक तरफ 4 ओपनर सेलेक्ट करे थे, एकदम से आप 2 पे चले गए हो. So that's a bit weird for me. And then of course I think we're lacking one more spinner. We've selected too many fast bowlers. So those 2 changes I want to see at the very minimum. And I'm also a believer that T20 is not necessarily only a young man's sport. Experience counts for something, and West Indies is a prime example of that. Exactly. So Malik and Hafiz, I'm not too I wouldn't mind having them. You don't have to play both of them in the same game, but having those options, especially the dressing room presence, would help. But anyway, we've talked a lot on this. I want to move on to the preview for the Pakistan and New Zealand 3-match ODI series. Let's start with the fact that we don't have DRS, and this is not going to be part of the ODI Super League. And since this was a home series, that seems like an opportunity lost, and it really takes some of the sheen away from a very landmark series that was about to happen.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, this series was kind of not fully decided initially, was it? Right? Now that the IPL is going on and DRS seems to be a software that, can't be everywhere. There's certain layoffs with certain companies who actually handle DRS, all that kind of, background politics. End result is Pakistan was unable to acquire DRS facilities for the ODI series. Very disappointing. Not fair in terms of, Pakistan not being able to. Let's assume Pakistan won 3-0. Doesn't matter. Who cares? Because it's not part of the Super League. Pakistan still needs to technically qualify for that Super League. Now, I think at the end of the day, ICC's stipulations say if you have DRS, then it counts. If you don't, then there's no way they can include it, because everyone needs to play on a fair kind of
level playing field.
Thank you very much. Level playing field. So now that's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, this is good practice for the Pakistani less experienced people, right? If it doesn't count, there's less pressure on you.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Players like Iftikhar Ahmed, right? For the sake of argument. Kustil Shah because he's in the T20 squad. Azam Khan. There's Fakhar Zaman's actually in the squad. So Pakistan has a pretty decent squad for this particular ODI series. And obviously New Zealand are quite weak. They haven't got 9 or 10 of their main players that they would bring into an ODI T20 series. So it's good to see what New Zealand brings to the table. It's good to see what Pakistan might actually try. So this series might actually be a very, very good series. I don't want to remember what happened in England. So let's not talk about what happened in England. But we have to always remember that doesn't matter if the other team is a B team or a C team, you still have to play well to be able to win matches.
And not just England, of course, Pakistan did lose, got whitewashed in England against their C team. And then also we lost T20 series, which was the first series of Misbah and Waqar as coaches versus Sri Lanka. And that was also a C team for Sri Lanka. So we have that precedent, and that's why we, of course, cannot count New Zealand out. But yes, it is a little bit underwhelming, right, that their top players aren't coming. But, you know, you can only make do with what you get. And I don't even want to get into all of that. But I will say one thing, that, of course, you can't take any team lightly. But this New Zealand team, it's not like they're absolutely unknown players over here. They do have a few of their regulars coming in. Tom Latham is very experienced. Henry Nichols is also someone who's in their World Cup squad. Then you've got Matt Henry, who's actually, I feel that Matt Henry should always start for New Zealand. And he doesn't very frequently. He even had that stellar performance against India in the semi of the World Cup. And then you also have Colin de Grandhomme, who might be off form, but you know what we exactly know, Pakistan know what he is capable of, especially, you know, I remember that test in which he took like a 6 for something, and then of course he's a hard hitter. So you've got that experience, and then, you know, you don't have dust bowls in Pakistan like you do in Bangladesh. The wickets are going to be sporting over here. Rawalpindi offers a bit for the pacers, so there will be something for the pacers over there, but generally it's going to be a good batting track, and that, I think, puts New Zealand in good stead coming into the series and gives them a fair chance. I mean, I'm not saying that Pakistan are not favorites. They're clearly favorites and they should win this ODI series, but that doesn't mean that New Zealand are just going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah. All I want to add to this, what you said, because everything you said is very true. The Rawalpindi pitch, it's usually kind of green, usually helps the pacers, and if it's an ODI game, it's going to give you quite decent bounce. Now, who do New Zealand have? Matt Henry, Scott Kuggeleijn, Jacob Duffy, and that's where I'm like, oh snap, they've actually got pretty darn decent bowlers. Jacob Duffy on his T20 debut got 4 wickets against Pakistan not too long ago. Okay, Pakistan knows exactly what he's capable of. But what Pakistan will need to do within this series is that if they play young players, they need to play fearless cricket. And I know people talk about fearless cricket all the time. But if the series doesn't count, there is no pressure on you. You try and play as best as you possibly can. Also, you mentioned Henry Nichols, Tom Latham, Colin de Grandhomme, not in the best of nick. What does Pakistan do best? Make other players get back into form. Okay, that's what Pakistan does. So I'm absolutely petrified for what Colin de Grandhomme might actually be able to pull off against Pakistan. I think New Zealand's team isn't, as you said, it's not their best team, but it's still a very, very sporting team. Even if there's not dust bowls, Pakistan can win against any team, Pakistan can lose against any team. That's just a skill, mashallah, that we have. Yeah. Okay, so if we look at this as a positive, that Pakistan, even if they're playing against this team, it will be a competitive series, it will be a sporting series, and at the end of the day, it'll be entertaining. And now, as a cricket fan, as an objective cricket fan, that's all you can ask for. But as a Pakistani, my heart hurts almost every time I watch Pakistan play, because it's up here, down the next ball, and everything like that. But definitely, this Pakistan side, if they go with that no pressure approach, if they go with we need to win this series just as a confidence boost for the rest of the T20 series and the World Cup and the England series, and then obviously the World Cup, I think this will be good in good stead for the entirety of the squad. On top of that, you mentioned Fakhar Zaman. Fakhar Zaman, this series is huge for Fakhar Zaman, because if he scores well in the ODIs, we know what Pakistan will do. Yep. They will make certain changes and try and put him back into the squad. I just don't want him to bat at 5 or 6, because
absolutely not. Yep.
Right? Even though Babar Azam
number 3 at best. Number 3 at best.
Exactly. Thank you very much. It's the same thing as Chris Gayle, West Indies, right? Chris Gayle ideally should be opening, but if he's batting at 3, he can't bat at 4. He is Chris Gayle. Same thing with Fakhar Zaman. There's certain players that need to be in the top 3, and Fakhar Zaman for Pakistan will need to be one of those players, especially if he has a very good series against New Zealand.
Yep, and I pretty much agree with everything you said over there. I think they should play fearlessly. They should experiment and give some youngsters a go. And I do think this will be a competitive series, not just because, New Zealand are a team, but always punches above their weight. Yeah. So don't take them lightly, and there's still a lot of quality. I would take this New Zealand B team over the B team of England that they played, even though this is Pakistan's conditions. But then again, Rawalpindi will be a very sporting wicket. It'll have something in it for the fast bowlers. You forgot to mention this one player who actually clocks over 140 Ks for New Zealand and is an upcoming seamer, Ben Sears, and I'm really excited to see him, and I think they might even play him because he partners Hamish Bennett for Wellington in the domestic circuit, and Hamish Bennett is also a part of the squad, and he has a bit of experience under his belt. So I think that's what they're going to go with. They're going to go with Bennett, Sears, and then of course Matt Henry as their pacers, and then Colin de Grandhomme can pitch in with a few overs. That's what I think they will do. I am expecting an extremely competitive series, and the last two players that I'm really looking forward to see from New Zealand are Finn Allen, who's a bit of a basher. He has that reputation. Doesn't have a lot of T20Is under his belt, but he has a strike rate in T20Is of around 190. Just let that sink in. And if that, you can say the sample size is small for that. If you look at his entire T20 career, the strike rate is still north of 170. So this is a guy who can take the game away from Pakistan and can set the tone for New Zealand. And then you have the youngster, Rachin Ravindra. Now, he hasn't really shown on the international arena a lot. He's gotten a few opportunities. He hasn't performed, but he was earmarked as one of New Zealand's future greats. And, he idolizes Sachin Tendulkar. He did really well for them in the Under-19 World Cup. He's also a slow left-arm spinner. This is a utility cricketer that New Zealand could really use. And Ben Sears, Finn Allen, and Rachin Ravindra. I've got my eyes set on these 3.
I'll talk about Ben Sears very quickly. I was doing my preview with Aaron, the cricket connoisseur.
Yep.
And dude was raving about Ben Sears off camera, on camera. And definitely, I checked him out. Fantastic bowler. I just feel like they might actually go with someone else in the first couple of games. But definitely, Ben Sears, sure shot within the New Zealand side. And Finn Allen, come on. Everyone knows who Finn Allen is. The way that, even in the 100, in the T20 Blast, wherever he's played, apart from on the international stage and the IPL, everywhere else he's actually done a very good job. Whenever he bats, that strike rate is outstanding. T20 doesn't matter. Having that consistent high strike rate, as you said, he's more of a basher, but then when he scores a lot of runs. So definitely very important cog to the New Zealand lineup. And again, I'll mention Tom Latham once again, by the way. Tom Latham just recently scored a 50, I think a couple of games ago, against Bangladesh in a T20I, right? Helped New Zealand quite a bit. Scored a couple of 20s as well. So yeah, very excited to see Tom Latham. And last but not least, Will Young.
Will Young.
I've been a huge fan of Will Young for at least 2 years, at least 2 to 3 years since his county days, right? Even in England, in the county championship, he smashed a fantastic 100 a few months ago. And in Bangladesh, just recently, he scored a couple of a 40, a couple of 20s in T20s. And T20 is not his format. His format is Test and obviously List A. So definitely, I think he'll be an exciting prospect. I would like to see him do a lot for New Zealand. Hopefully not in this series, though.
Yeah, I think he also got to go in the Test series earlier against England. And also Mark Chapman and Will Young. These are two players who they look very good, but they haven't quite gotten the numbers yet in international cricket. So it's a fantastic opportunity for them. And again, just to add on your point about Finn Allen, he could potentially be the heir to Martin Guptill's throne. So there's that, right? And New Zealand are looking towards the future, and they've got a top quality side. So the fact that this is their B team, I think that speaks volumes. But anyway, I want to talk quickly about what 11 you would feel for Pakistan in this ODIs, or let's just talk about the first ODI. Now, I'm not going to go into the squad because they selected 20 people and it's a home series. So we're just going to go one by one, and we can, argue about who should play and who should not. And I think there's no debate on the top 3. Fakhar Imam and Babar, they've been so successful. And even if you're playing a weaker team, you should always play those 3 guys at the top, because whenever Pakistan wins, one of those 3 guys always performs.
Yeah, 100%. It's a no-brainer. Let's just put it that way, to not have Fakhar Imam and Babar at the top. And then for me, I would go Saud and Rizwan afterwards, but I'd like to hear what you think, because I think Saud Shakil has proven himself in the List A stage in Pakistan. Now, he should get a fair shot within the ODI setup, considering there is no Haris Sohail, who has apparently said that he's fit, but he's just not been selected. It might be because of age or whatever. But
honestly, I'm kind of done with. I used to be a fan of Haris Sohail, but again, his fitness standards aren't up to it. He's always injured. Pakistan needs someone reliable, and Saud Shakil is someone I'm actually a big fan of. I generally do have a soft spot for left-handers as long as they don't have a tainted past. But Saud Shakil, I think he's a really compact player. His balance is really, really good. And he's low center of gravity. So, he has that Asad Shafiq kind of fluency to his batting. Yeah. And Saud Shakil also can he can roll his arm over, can give you a few overs of spin. And very rightly pointed out by you, I do feel that they should promote him up the order ahead of Rizwan, because Rizwan can be aggressive as well. Saud Shakil, I'm not sure if he has that to his game. I have been wanting to see him in Test cricket for the longest time. That hasn't happened yet. But I think Saud should come at number 4 and then Rizwan at 5, just because Rizwan can play that aggressor role if need be. And then also, if we're 60 for 4, he can be the man for a crisis. He can do both of those things. And I think even though I'm sure Rizwan can play at number 4, and he showed us in England, got an 84 odd, he showed us he can do that. But I think Saud Shakil would be better utilized at number 4. Give him more overs to bat, let him, build an innings and let him bat till the end. So I do agree with that. So Saud at 4 and Rizwan at 5. I think we have consensus over there. Now this is where it gets interesting. Everyone else. Now, and maybe both know that Hassan and Shaheen are playing, right?
Yeah.
There's no argument over there. So let's stack them at the bottom right away. And then you'd play one of Haris or Hasnain. Who would you go for over there at the bottom?
I would ideally go for Hasnain, because I would never go for Haris. I think Haris goes for way too many runs. Hasnain is much better in the longer format than Haris as well. Haris is good for a good 4 overs max. And then Hasnain provides a lot more stability, a lot more accuracy. And he's actually a lot quicker right now than Haris Rauf is in general. So I would go Hasnain.
They've both got pace, but they're kind of polar opposites of each other, because Haris is good at the death. Hasnain is good with the new ball, is not good at the death at all. So it's a toss-up, honestly. It depends on what their plans are. And because Hassan Ali can bowl really well with the old ball, I would say maybe Hasnain makes more sense, but I wouldn't mind Haris Rauf. I'm actually a fan of the way he plays his cricket. I do agree that he goes for plenty, but I don't think that he's I think he cops far too much criticism than deserved. But let me throw a curveball at you. You also have the option of Shahnawaz Dhani. So maybe you could give him an ODI debut. As you said, there's nothing to lose over here.
Exactly. And that's what I was looking at before joining today. I thought we have the option of Shahnawaz Dhani, not Mohammad Wasim Jr., because I don't know why he's been picked over a lot of other players. And then you have the option of Mohammad Hasnain. One of those two actually, I think should be Pakistan's third pacer within this ODI series, definitely. Now, Shahnawaz Dhani getting that debut would genuinely help in developing that player. However much I talk about domestic cricket, play domestic cricket for 3-4 years, then come into the Pakistan side, Pakistan doesn't like doing that. So if they're not going to do it, Shahnawaz Dhani is probably the best bowler who hasn't played for Pakistan yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely proved his credentials in the limited overs format. I'm not sure how good he is in list day, but honestly, at this point, you might as well try him. So I'll say Hassan and Shaheen at the end, and then one more pacer. That could be any of these guys, honestly. I don't really mind. That leaves you with 3 spots, right? You got the top 5, and then you got 3 at the bottom. That gives you 3 more spots. And of course, one of these will be Shadab Khan. He's the vice captain. He will play. So I guess he would come in at 6. That still leaves you with 2 spots. Now, rather than playing another batsman, an Iftikhar or a Khushdil, I want to play 2 more all-rounders, because you bat deep already. You've got batting till Hassan Ali, and Hassan Ali, I'd say, is a really formidable hitter. He gives me those Afridi vibes now, even though sometimes I feel like he can apply himself a bit better. But honestly, if this is his game plan, more power to him. So the 2 spots that are left between Shadab and the bowling attack, I'm not sure. I've been impressed with Wasim Jr. because I think he's a very formidable hitter. Bowling, he could go for runs a bit, but he's 20, so this could be a good opportunity to try him. If not Wasim Jr., then you could go with Fahim Ashraf. You have a like-for-like sort of replacement over there. And then the one spot left, since you don't have Imad Wasim in this team right now, I guess that just goes to Mohammad Nawaz. I mean, who else could you play? You do need a little more overs of spin, right?
100%. I actually forgot that Shadab Khan was in the squad. So thank you for telling me Shadab Khan's in the squad. I would actually put Nawaz over Shadab, personally. I just think Nawaz can play a longer innings if required. And on top of that, left-hand, right-hand combination right from the top. In the top 7, Pakistan has 3 left-handers and 4 right-handers. That would go quite well, in my opinion. But then, yeah, obviously Nawaz and Shadab, whichever order you play them. And then that one spot. For me, number 8 is the one spot I'm unsure about. Everything else, I had a decision. I was like, yaar, number 8 pe kisko khilana hai? And then I thought, maybe Fahim Ashraf is not a bad shout, but his form in white ball is complete opposite of his red ball form. Because in red ball, he's doing a fantastic job. But again, he plays for Islamabad. It's Rawalpindi. He's got good line and length when he applies himself, especially in the longer formats. All right. So that might actually help his contention into the side. Mohammad Wasim Jr., as you said, it's a like-for-like replacement. So does Pakistan go in with the new style, or they go in with a tried and tested system? And seems like with the new chairman and the potential of new coaches now, Saklan and Abdul Razak both involved in the series, I think they might go in directions that we don't expect. So I'm quite excited about how they'll go about it moving forward. But definitely for me, I would slightly favor Fahim Ashraf over Mohammad Wasim Jr. if I was at number 8.
I think I would slightly favor Wasim Jr. over Fahim Ashraf, and I'll give you that rationale is because he doesn't have a lot of pace, and you need pace on this Rawalpindi wicket. That's how you get wickets. And if he is a little bit wavered, then he will definitely be punished on this wicket. If he starts feeding their hip, which he did feed a lot, Sharjil's hip a lot in the PSL in the Pindi Stadium, and he went for plenty. So that's what I'm afraid of. And then all of a sudden you played him to get control, but he's doing the exact opposite. Wasim Jr. has a bit of pace, and you know, from what I've heard, I'll be honest, I haven't seen him do a lot of power hitting, but from what I've heard, he's a very, very formidable power hitter. So, you know, this is one of those series where you can try things out. There's nothing much at stake over here. So I would give him a go. But either way, even if Fahim plays, I wouldn't be disappointed. Let's just put it that way. That wraps up the team. One final thing I'd like to ask you. Of course, it is pretty standard. Pre-series predictions for the ODI series?
Oof, it's tough. It's Pakistan in Pakistan against a B-level team. So, you know, anything can happen. I tell you this. I think Pakistan winning 2-1 is the most logical and the most standard answer anyone's going to give you. I'm going to go left field. Pakistan's going to lose 2-1 to New Zealand in this ODI series, and I'll explain for one reason and one reason only. Pakistan is taking this ODI series lightly. Okay? Even though there is no pressure, that does not mean that you take the entire team lightly. Now, we saw it, we've seen it, as you said, presidents is there, Sri Lanka and England very recently in England 2 months ago. So I'm kind of scared about that. So my personal prediction is that New Zealand actually wins this one 2-1. But in the T20s, I think Pakistan will come back and probably minimum 3-2 within that series.
Yep, I'm probably going to hold my reservations for the T20 series right now. 3-2 sounds about right. I'll be fair. I'm going to go with 2-1 Pakistan because it is the obvious choice. I don't think they can whitewash New Zealand because New Zealand will come hard at them. But I also do feel that they might just win the first 2 and then, you know, the last one they experiment a bit more and lose. I don't know. 2-1 seems the logical sort of choice for me, but I'll hold you to your prediction. We'll definitely record maybe during the series or sometime after, so I'll remind you about that. But thank you so much, Asjad. Someone who is part of the same industry. It means a lot to me that you made it to show. Of course, you do your fantastic job yourself. And for all of you guys who are watching, do check out Cricket for Us. It's a fantastic channel, and as you can tell from Asjad's energy, you won't be bored. So thank you so much for making the show.
No, of course, man. It's a pleasure. Very, very much enjoyed myself. I like that you knew a lot more about everything than me. So it's always good to learn. All right. It's always good to learn. So yeah, very, very excited. I got a chance to be on your show, and inshallah, I can come back again.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do something about that. But folks, that's a wrap for volume 43. Of course, if you liked this video or enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon in order to be notified about all of my latest videos. I'll catch you after the first ODI. That's all for now. Kazi off the mic.
Have a look at that, smiles up, oh, it's nearly taken someone out the stands. That was a flat 6 right under the stand there, the George Giffen stand, up into the members, and it went like a rocket.